Which actually brings me to my point about how I feel like that fits into Buddhism is like the like within the Four Noble Truths, this is like a set of, they're not rules but ways to describe like our human nature. I'm sure you've heard of them.
No, I haven't. Very.
Yeah. So the Four Noble Truths are like all life is suffering. There is a source to all suffering. There is a way to stop suffering, and then there's a way to be enlightened. So like after, they go in order too. If you think about it, it's like first you realize that all life is suffering, and that's through awareness. And then you realize that suffering comes from, there's something that causes suffering. So that's like cause and effect and the interconnectedness of everything. And then you realize that there is a way to end that suffering. So that's like wisdom, enlightening your perspective. And then the final stage would be ascending above all of that and like reaching nirvana. So like with everything, the reason why I asked you the question of like, why would anyone want to approach things with those six perspectives? What I had thought of to answer that question is everyone at some level is trying to relieve their suffering, whether they're conscious of it or not, because all experiences cause suffering. Even the most joyous experiences we could have can cause suffering because they don't last forever and they change. And because of our delusion that we think that things are impermanent and we think that things have their own inherent value, we get suffering from things that even cause us happiness because they don't last.
I love what you said. I love those. It was called, what was it again?
The Four Noble Truths.
Love that. I need to add that to my wall. Uh, However,
Yes.
I would add to all experiences add suffering, where the level of presence you can maintain in life resolves that suffering coming from good experiences. I understood what you were saying when you said it, thought about it for a bit, and I see it. However, I would argue that there's a level out of that, and I'll give you a perfect example because just a moment ago I was on a awesome ride on the bike. Me and a friend of mine had a great time. Had a great time getting home. Uh, very fun, extremely enjoyable. I truly love it, and I don't have this sense of, because I'm not doing it now. I don't have this sense of pain. I don't have this regret. If it's a month before I ride again, like that's okay. It's being so present, being in that moment where you enjoy the moments for what they are. And when you maintain that level of presence, you don't have those threads, those strings that are attaching, or you're able to disassociate between a pleasant thought, a memory, versus this feeling of remorse, like
Yeah.
loss of
Yeah.
time. Oh, I wish I was still riding right now. This narrative that so many of us have of living in the past versus observing and distinguishing the memory of
Yeah.
the past.
Totally. And that's what we as humans are programmed that's how we're programmed to, I don't know if program is the right word, but that's how we react. That's how we've been for most of time, is basing our current state on our past states because that's what we know to be true and we've experienced it and it's like evidence for us. And
Yeah,
you're like pinpointing it exactly, is like bringing the awareness, shining wisdom on it is the antidote to undoing that and like untangling from that.
Yeah, and in the again mentioning the book Deviate, he said it in such a great way. I really appreciated where because again it's written at the level of neuroscience and explaining the actual mechanism and why we have memories and what they're there for and how that shapes our brain and how we react from it. Again, I can't say enough how much it was just such a great read. And what he wrote in that book, and I may be a little off, so let's call this a paraphrase, is that memory was is intended for us to learn from, not to live through. So again, you have to remember like this, or not, we have to remember, shouldn't have said it that way, we have to remember that this age we live in is so still very, very recent. I mean, humans at the form that we know ourselves have been around for, I believe, hundreds of thousands of years. You know, this technology boom is a good 100-ish years old. I mean, this is new. It wasn't too long ago where we really were fighting for survival, and you know where we didn't have the shelter we have today, and you know before we had these countries that were outside of the element and forests, and you know there was animals out there that you know if you didn't remember that that lion is going to kill you, we would be extinct. You know, memory was meant, experience was meant, our ability to you know, recall the past is why we were able to grow to where we are today, to learn from, not live through. And in the absence of ourselves truly teaching ourselves about ourselves, given what we have discovered thus far, is what's creating a world that's advancing and people that are not.
Say that last one again.
It's our absence of teaching ourselves about ourselves that's keeping the world advancing, however, withholding people from advancing. We're living as if we're still running around from lions and tigers and we're living as if we're still surviving. Our brains are functioning that way. It's it's what we have right now in the world is more of a software problem. You know, much of our mind can be reshaped and grown and expanded. There's few elements that are just hardwired, and it is what our biology of encompassing a human is. So much more of this though is software. And if we entertain that just a bit more, if we actually incorporate it into our learning mechanism, not as an elective, not as something you stumble along through in life, not as something you just, you know, experience. Some people naturally as they age, or some people abruptly wake up to when they're in near life ending situations. Like if we just embraced and taught ourselves about ourselves, the world would it would for certain be a totally different place. The you know we so much of what I just it's one thing I struggle with from looking at it through my humanity is why we don't. It's you know the most the thing we value the most, ourselves, on this whole planet, right? We fight for ourselves so much. We're the number one species. You know, we've taken over this world. Yet it's the same thing that we don't actually put an emphasis on understanding at a community level.
Yeah. Which brings me to like, yeah, so going back to that question of like, why would anyone want to do these things, right? What I had said was everyone wants to relieve their suffering at some level. And the very last thing you said about like, why are we not, you know, as a species, like doing this and helping others, and there's a lack of the sense of community is absolutely true. And the second, like in Buddhism, it's called the two wings to enlightenment. So the first one is wisdom. So bringing awareness to our delusions and knowing that things are impermanent and everything's interconnected, like those big ideas is like one wing. And then the other wing is bodhicitta, which is the term, I believe it means awakened mind, bodhi meaning awakened, yeah, and chitta meaning mind. And it's an attitude of you do everything not to alleviate your own suffering, but you will do everything at any means to bring everyone else to enlightenment before yourself. So, like, having ultimate compassion for all living beings. And that's your actual goal. So, like, reaching enlightenment and reaching these higher states of being is not just for yourself. Like, you could get there for yourself, but like true ultimate enlightenment. So there's like nirvana and then enlightenment. Nirvana is a place where like you don't have suffering anymore because you've reached a certain level of consciousness where you just don't suffer. And then enlightenment is you got to that level because you realize this and you care so much about everyone else that you want everyone else to be there too. So all of your actions are informed by that compassion for others.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So someone who would do that would be considered a bodhisattva. Um, and people, take bodhisattva vows that they will only reach enlightenment if everyone else does. And that's why it's like, it's said in Buddhism that it takes like 3 countless eons to reach enlightenment. Like literally, that's the,
I
the
I
number. That's
believe
the
that.
number they give.
No, I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that. I have a lot of faith in where uh, human beings are going, or I should say, where the potential for human beings are to go. Uh, it's extremely difficult for our human minds to extrapolate such time frames. Like, for example, the universe has been around for 13.6 billion years. Like, we say that. However, to actually hold that number, that value, that time, we have no concept of it. Like, we have no, we can't hold any weight to what that truly means in time. I mean, we've been in quarantine for 2 months and people are going out of their mind. And you kind of talk about eons and billions of years. So I won't claim to have any way to hold those types of values of time. However, I will say that I believe that it's going to take us a really long time to get to where we're going. And again, putting in reference of where we are so far. And you know, if I was, I'm here because I'm inspired from Joe Rogan, but I don't have the computer guy to Google something for me to fact check real quick. I'm fairly certain that human beings as we know it have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. Maybe just pretty recently developed the way we are as far as language and interacting. So you look at that, and again, I'm fairly certain that I'm close to the mark on this. Hundreds of thousands of years, and we're here, and we're here. And again, I'm not saying we're in the worst place, but we're most certainly nowhere near, in my belief, our potential, and we're here. So, it's not too far of a stretch to say that we may have a couple 100,000 years left, and that might be a little short because I don't remember. However, I'm pretty sure an eon is a little bit longer than a couple 100,000 years, but I forgot. I did look that up once upon a time. However, I didn't retain that number.
All I know is it's a really long time.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually think that a lot of definitions, that is the actual definition. I think I'll say an eon is a really long time. I'm serious. I really think some sources will say that, and that's a scientific answer, I guess, because it's that long. It's
Yeah.
putting a number to it wouldn't even mean anything. It's like talking about, and to be a little scientific, it's like talking about the Planck length which I think is 10 to the minus 35 or 34, which, I mean, again, you can say that number. I mean, it's unimaginably
Can't
small.
even conceptualize it.
No, I mean, we look through atoms on microscopes, and the Planck length just goes, orders of magnitude lower than that. I mean, just it's I don't it's unconceivable.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to show you this. So like the idea of awareness is huge, right? And it can be achieved through meditation, which is why meditation is such a big part of, Buddhist spiritual practice. Um,
Imagine if we did that alone in schools, and not even like a huge
I
thing.
know.
Imagine if we just added every day a 10-minute meditation. Just, I guarantee that would change this country in call it 12 years, right? We'll get
Yeah,
one generation through it, and it would be remarkable just to put that into practice. 10 out of
yeah,
24 hours, add 10 minutes a day in school as just a quiet time. I mean, and I believe in Italy, they have like extended lunch periods where, we kind of just work through everything in just 10 minutes, change your life.
yeah. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do right now, like with schools. Is build a mindfulness program. I'm going to offer it to my school first, hopefully by June. That's what I'm working on right now. But yeah, I'm really committed to changing education in that way, and I think it would make a huge difference. And yeah, I mean, I do meditation with students like at a smaller scale, and a lot of them see the benefits right away. They're like, oh my God, like that felt so good. I can't believe that just by breathing, like I feel so calm. And they don't even know because they're so disconnected from their bodies because they don't know the tools to connect with their bodies that when they experience it, they're like, this is so weird. I had a student tell me once that they felt like they were in a movie after doing a mindfulness practice. Like
That's that's
that's how,
that's an experience of awakening, and what that student got was, and I have felt this way, is I think one of the best references ever is like the Matrix. And I would
yeah,
talk to that student like that's that feeling. You feel like you're in a movie because we've only depicted that feeling in a movie. Like the
yeah,
Matrix brings a perfect correlation to that, and that's what it feels like. I remember feeling like that when I was in New York City. I looked around, and it was like a flashback to that scene in the movie. Like that's what it felt like. Like
yeah.
it was a very eerie, and I say that I mean that in a positive way feeling. And what I mean by eerie, it was just totally out of the box feeling. It's
Yeah,
impossible to explain to an extent.
yeah. I know what you mean. I sometimes I just pause in my life and I look around. I'm like, what the hell is?